Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Red Short webinar. For today's webinar, we will be discussing Drovorub Malware, which has recently been the subject of multiple public and private advisories. A link to a related article will be made available in the chat box here in GoToMeeting. Red Sky Alliance has been monitoring APT28 along with many other APT groups over the past year. You may be familiar with APT28, also known as Fancy Bear, as they are one of the APT groups which interfered with the 2016 elections. The group operates on behalf of the Russian military GRU 85th Main Special Service Center Unit. The group has recently been spotted using a custom malicious Linux toolkit called Drovorub to infect users and steal sensitive data. This malware suite consists of 4 separate components. So we have the Drovorub client, the kernel module, a Drovorub agent, and the command and control or C2 server. The Drovorub client, which is installed by the attackers, receives commands from the Drovorub C2 and offers file transfer, port forwarding, and remote shell capabilities. On this slide here, you can see an example of client configuration files. The top image shows the initial client configuration, a 128-bit time-based UUID string that the C2 server generates for the client when it first connects. And the last 6 bytes of that UUID are the MAC address of one of the C2 server's Ethernet adapters. Therefore, it's likely that the last 6 bytes of the ID value will be the same for Drovorub clients and agents that connect to the same C2 server. The key value is returned from the Drovorub server to the client during the initial handshake. The bottom image shows a client configuration file with hidden artifacts listed. If the file, module, or network port is currently being hidden by the Drovorub kernel module, the active field will be set to true. For files and modules, the mask field is the name of the file or module that is being hidden. The Drovorub kernel module sets up all the system call hooks that are needed for rootkit functionality. Then the client registers itself with the kernel module, which gives the module the ability to hide the client's running processes and executables on disk. If the Drovorub client is unable to communicate with the Drovorub kernel module, it will stop execution. The agent module, the agent executable receives commands from its configured C2. It includes much of the same functionality as the Drovorub client, except for that remote shell capability. The agent also isn't packaged with the kernel module rootkit. The purpose of the agent is to upload and download files to and from infected devices and to forward network traffic through port relays. The image at the top is an example of the initial agent configuration file. The image below shows the file after the agent has been registered with the Drovorub C2. As you can see, it's assigned the client ID and a base64 encoded client key. So all network communication between the Drovorub components uses the WebSocket protocol implemented in the publicly available POCO C++ library. Drovorub clients and agents don't talk directly to each other, but communicate through the Drovorub server, as you can see on the screen here. This means that Drovorub clients and agents can only communicate with other clients and agents who are connected to that same command and control server. The client initiates communication with the Drovorub server by first establishing a WebSocket connection via an HTTP upgrade request. The C2 server then responds with an HTTP 101 switching protocols response. Once the client establishes a WebSocket connection, it attempts to authenticate with the C2 server. For the Drovorub client, the server IP address and port information is embedded within the executable, but for the Drovorub agent, it is contained within the Drovorub agent's configuration file. The images on this slide show the command sequence for file download and file upload if successful. The server starts by sending a transfer request to the Drovorub agent to initiate the file transfer. The agent then sends the open action to the intended client, instructing it to open the specified file path for reading. And next, the client sends an open success response to the Drovorub agent, which signifies that it successfully opened the specified file for reading. The response includes the size of the file being downloaded, and the agent sends a read command to the client, which signifies, okay, the agent is ready to receive the file data. Once the message is received, clients send a read data response containing the file contents, and multiple read data responses can be sent at this stage if the file is too large. Lastly, the Drovorub agent sends a close command to the client to end the file transfer and close the open file. To prevent persistence, Linux sysadmins should update any systems to at least Linux kernel 3.7 or later in order to take advantage of kernel signing enforcement. System owners are advised to configure systems to only load modules with a valid digital signature, making it more difficult for an actor to introduce a malicious kernel module into the system. As seen here in this presentation, attackers can use a malicious kernel module to control the system, hide, or persist across reboots. Activating UEFI Secure Boot can ensure that only signed kernel modules can be loaded as well. Lastly, there are numerous Yara and snort rules which can be used to detect Drovorub components. These are publicly available, but if you'd like more information on this, please don't hesitate to reach out. In conclusion, Drovorub is a fairly low risk but high impact malware that is likely to cause significant damage to APT28 targets specifically. With the kernel module and stealth capabilities, it's possible that many who are infected may not even notice until the security incident takes place. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions regarding the topics briefed today, please get in touch with Jay McKee at wapaklabs.com. Join us on November 25th for our next Red Short. And if you missed any of the previous Red Short report webinars, you can find them on redskyalliance.org/redshorts. If you're not a member, you'll have to sign up, but your free membership will give you access to all kinds of Red Sky Alliance content. Thanks, and have a great week, everybody.